the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Chris, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Get there. All right. Vice Chair Slinger,
Here.
Madeline Quinlan,
Here.
Julia Maxwell,
Here.
Lisa Schmidt,
Here.
Hannah Neeskens,
Here.
Renee Rasmussen. Renee, can you hear us?
Yeah, I said here or there,
okay.
depending
Right.
upon where you're sitting.
Chair Tharp,
Here.
Lydia Comstock,
Here.
Commissioner Christian's office, Governor Gianforte's office, Superintendent Hedlund's office.
Here.
Board of Public Education encourages the public to participate in board discussions. Persons who wish to participate should sign the public comment sign-in sheet and identify themselves to the board chair or executive director prior to the board's consideration of the matter in which the persons are concerned. Anyone wishing to participate in board discussions will be recognized by the chairperson in keeping with normal board parliamentary procedure. We discourage public comment on personnel matters and ask that you discuss these issues in private with the board chair. The Board of Public Education is a professional development unit provider. Attending a Board of Public Ed meeting may qualify you to receive professional development units. Please complete the necessary information on the sign-in sheet if you are applying for professional development units. This time, I'd like to welcome any visitors who'd like to introduce themselves. And I want to thank everybody for making me feel so welcome. It feels like just like I'm in the pulpit with everybody sitting in the back. Just like a Sunday morning here. Anybody wish to introduce themselves? Anybody online? Alrighty, well, we will continue with our agenda. Our next item is number 19, reports. State Superintendent is delayed. We're gonna go ahead and push her back and we'll just wait until she gets here and move forward. I know she has a lot of staff here present, but we'll go ahead and wait for her as long as we can here, and we'll move on with other reports as we can. I'll hand things over to our charter committee, Dr. Slinger.
Thank you, Chair Tharp. We'll start with item number 20, an update from Community Choice Schools Commission. Kathy, it's so good to see you online. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to see you all. And yeah, glad you were able to resolve all those tech issues. That sounded a little chaotic for a minute. Yes, so I have a few items to report out to you all on today on the progress of the Community Choice Schools Commission. Some program and policy development, public relations, fundraising, and updates on our next meeting. But I'm going to start with the best news first, is that we just received notice this week that we received our grant application for another year of funding the director's position was approved. So we are thrilled to be able to continue this work for another year. We're making tremendous progress so far. And I believe we will be on track to get everything done that we've outlined. And then the next big project that will be under the next phase of the grant is planning out our Year Zero program. So lots more to come on that. And yeah, what we're currently working on right now is the proposed new school application policy. And like I said, we've made great progress on that. So we have all of the policies, the documents, the templates, etc., to promote the pre-application process, the application process, and then the final contracting to opening stages. So that has been a tremendous amount of work. Includes some guidebooks for members, for founders. As I said, lots of templates for notes for the interview. We've included notice of intent, pitch meetings, etc. All of those documents will go to the commission at our December meeting for approval. And in addition to the new application cycle, we also have all of our templates together for our annual reports. So the law calls for annual reports from the schools to the commission, any other authorizers to the commission, and then the commission to the interim education committee, Board of Public Education, and the public. And we have templates, as I said, for all those together, ready for board approval. And I might like to share one or two of those at our next meeting, especially the one to the BPE. The next phase of work is already underway, which is putting together all of our procedures for the renewal process. And also underway is another RFP working with the procurement department and the BPE staff The commission is asking for some policy work around special education. So the community choice schools are obligated to all federal laws for special education, but as you know, those of you familiar with rural schools and small schools, it can be very difficult to put together a comprehensive special education plan. So the commission is looking for guidance in that regard, and then also in the application policy. So what should schools be planning to ensure that they have a fully compliant special ed program? And what should the commission be looking for in those applications? And then finally, there's kind of more interest now in what's known as specialty schools. So schools that are mainly intended for students with special needs. And the commission is looking for guidance in that as well, just to be sure that those schools would be in full compliance with IDEA and all other federal law. So that should be coming out later, well, probably next month. Finally, we held an advance because we do not retreat in October. And in that advance, we had a lot of excellent conversation around developing our core values, digging deeper into the commission's purpose and promise to the state, as well as defining guiding principles. And I would like to share that document once it's finally approved at our next meeting with you all, because I think it really not only defines the values of the commission, but really I think the purpose and value of community choice schools in Montana's public education landscape. On to public relations. So I hosted an open webinar for the first time this week, just for general interested parties across the state to get a little bit more information about the Community Choice Schools Act. We had maybe 10 or so participants, which for the first round I feel like is decent. And yeah, hope to continue to do that moving forward, maybe in combination with some of our commission meetings. In addition, we have 3, I think, strong founders out there who are well on their way to getting their models together. One of them is a classical education model, and the 2 others are both aimed at closing the American Indian achievement gap. So they continue to reach out for guidance around their application process. I think they have both of them like well underway, as I said, to really defining what their models are, and then also bringing in some great community outreach and support. So that is exciting to see. And with the commission making such great progress in the application process, hopefully we get an opportunity soon to launch an application. As far as our next meeting in December, as I mentioned, it will be on Zoom on December 9th. All of you are invited as always. It will be a heavy business meeting. Typically we have some professional development there as well, but this is annual business with officer elections, subcommittee decisions, etc. And then really going through all of the detail of that new application policy, the annual reports, the commission's core values, and also some rework to the application evaluation criteria. One of the members, Chip Lindenlaub, and myself had an opportunity to participate in an Authorizing 101 session at the National Association for Charter School Authorizers Conference recently, and definitely had some feedback for our evaluation criteria and have revamped that process to be more user-friendly and transparent, I believe. That is all I have, Chair Slinger.
Well, Kathy, that sounds like a lot. You have been busy. And first and foremost, congratulations on another year of funding. That's fantastic news.
We are very excited at that. Thank you.
So at this time, do any board members have any questions for Kathy?
It's the same question I always have. Anything from the courts?
Chair Slinger, Chair Tharp, I appreciate the question. We have heard nothing yet, but as I've said, we definitely have some strong interest out there. We have strong interest from members interested in closing the American Indian achievement gap, as well as others. So some high demand need, and I think the commission is getting very close, as I've said, to being ready to open an application cycle. So we're hopeful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Greatly appreciate it. I don't see any other
Thank you.
questions. Thanks so much. We'll see you at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Board members, next we'll move to item number 21. That's page 307 in your packet. Oh, sir, yes,
All
sir.
right, I just want to I imagine you might be in and out of the room here today, trying to juggle everything else. At this time, I want to just acknowledge Dr. Lee. I was,
Oh, absolutely.
in conversation with, my old friend and colleague, Dr. Mike Perry, and it's in a lot of ways, we feel like something happened. We used to be the young guys and now we've become the old guard. And we talk about how there's so much change across our campuses. And then we've got continual change here as Dr. Lee is going to be retiring at the end of this academic year. And we just want to appreciate everything that he has done to improve and continue to grow the relationships across the state of Montana, and appreciate his coordination of our space here today. And so on behalf of the Board of Public Education, we've got a gift for you, Dan. And us young bucks will do our best to continue. Dr. Slinger, the meeting's yours.
Thank you, Sheriff Tharp, and clearly, we have a different interpretation of young bucks. So, item number 21, sir, the information on public charter school fall enrollment data. Christy, it's great to have you here. Thanks so much.
Sit over
We would like you to sit right next to the owl.
here. Talk loud.
So focus is on you.
Good morning, everyone. Chair Tharp, Chair Slinger, members of the board. I'm Christy Mock-Stutz, MOCK-STUTZ, and I'm the Assistant Chief Program Officer at the Office of Public Instruction. So good morning. And I'm here to present to you the preliminary A and B, or average number of belonging data for the charter schools. There are 5 new charter schools this year, so we have some preliminary fall data, enrollment data for those charter schools. And this is important for you because how they are funded was based on their preliminary numbers and their applications to you, and then in their opening documentation to us as the API. So here's a check-in for that. So you are we'll start on page 309 in your packet, and I'll just walk you through the tables so you can see the 3 tables and what that information is telling you. So table number 1 are the first year public charter schools. And you'll see the schools listed there, their district, their school name, their budget unit. And you'll notice that the budget units are signified by an H, an M, or an E, signifying high school, middle, or elementary budget level. So that depends on their funding. You'll see what they anticipated their A and B to be, the basic entitlement that they were awarded for that anticipated amount, and then what their actual fall count is as of that fall count date, the first Monday in October. And then I put the last column puts the required A and B. It needs to be greater than 40 or 70 or 20. And so you can see those in the column. So these are your first year charter schools this year. The second table are the year 2 charter schools. So these are listed, and there's a little bit more information in table 2 because we have a little more information for them. But you'll see you have the district name, the school name, the budget unit, and then you'll see their fall count from last year, and then their final A and B count, just so you could see any changes that happened, from what we saw last year in the fall to what their final count was. And then the basic entitle amount that they got for this year based on that A and B. You'll see that in that column. And then you'll see their fall student counts this year, and then the A and B requirements. And then if you go to the next page, down to the bottom, table 3, this shows you those full-time and part-time enrollments. And remember, for the A and B counts, schools can put in partial enrollment. So a student can be half-time enrolled, quarter-time, three-quarter time, as long as their total enrollment equals 1, then they get a 1 A and B. So this chart shows you the district totals. So the district total for their charter schools is in the bold. So you'll see district totals. You'll see the full-time, half-time, if they have no A and B calculated for a particular student, quarter time, three-quarters time, and then the total student count. And the bolded rows are the total for charter schools in these districts. And so then you can see the numbers of students that have full or part-time enrollments in these charter schools going down the list there. So that's the overview of the tables and the information. Now, have any questions if you have them?
Thank you, Christie. So I'll start out with the district is not meeting their anticipated, what they're funded at. What happens then?
So our finance folks will send out a letter to them in December. And some have been aware and have already called us, in Ronan, for example, they've called and we've had a few meetings with them. They said, well, we're not getting the numbers that we thought we would, but we've actually, in our last meeting with them, they were positive. They said, you know what, we're getting more enrollments, and then they're feeling optimistic that they will get to the point by, the next count in February. But they will get a letter from school finance saying, you're not meeting that A and B right now. Make sure that, you understand that if you don't meet the A and B, then their last monthly payments, school payments will reduce by that amount this year.
So it reverts, that it was
It
a
does.
reversion. Thank you. Other questions from board members? Board member Nisbet.
I think just for the sake of transparency and clarity for all, I do believe I know the answer to this question, but school districts can only primarily enroll a student in one school. So what we're hearing a lot in our testimonies from the various schools is how they have a school within a school, or they're using shared staff, like they're taking English with the regular high school, and then they are doing accelerated courses at the charter school. And just for the sake of clarity, when we're looking at these full and part-time enrollments, these are unique students who are not enrolled in both schools. They may be taking a course from one school or another, but these are strictly unique students. They're either full-time, part-time, but their primary enrollment is with these charters. Is that correct?
Chair Singer, board member Neeskens, mostly correct, yes. In fact, so the primary enrollment is important because for our statewide assessment, for example, that's the primary, where a student is primarily enrolled is where that statewide assessment data is attributed to. So any student's primary enrollment is where that assessment data goes for those data purposes later when we're analyzing their performance like that for an accreditation. So students who are maybe half-time and half-time enrolled, the school has chosen which one is their primary enrollment. So it may be the charter school, but it may be a different school.
Chair Thorpe.
So, obviously, if they don't meet the minimum A and B requirement, they're not getting a basic entitlement, but there's nothing prohibiting these schools from continuing to operate within their charter. It just means they're not getting those basic entitlement payments, correct?
Correct. Chair Slinger and Board Chair Tharp, that is correct. And in fact, Billings is a great example. They're really committed to keeping their multilingual academy going, even though they don't quite have the numbers there, but they're very committed to that school and to the wonderful outcomes that they're seeing for their students there, and they're really committed to keeping that going.
Board member Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering, is there an opportunity for these schools to kind of have like a cohort type thing where they work together, like, hey, how are you doing enrollment? What did you do? How did you get this out? Just because it seems like some are just blowing it out of the water, like just rocking it. And then some seem to be struggling. Of course, that depends on what their charter school purpose is. But is there an opportunity for them to reach out and work with each other at some point?
Chair, Assistant Board Member Maxwell, yes, absolutely. And in fact, this summer, Executive Director Flynn organized a couple of webinars, and our team at OPI joins those, and the year 2 and the year 1 representatives from those schools came together, answered questions, talked about things to consider. In fact, a lot of the variance to standards that, questions came up, and so there was an opportunity for the schools to share those best practices, what worked, maybe things to watch out for, and things to consider moving forward.
Anytime, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
I would also let you know that now that we've hired staff to think mostly about public charter schools, I would say that that's something that she's been thinking a lot about, is how to really bring those schools together and have more conversations about best practices, maybe how to support one another. And so that's something that we're going to be trying to work more on.
Any other board member Neeskens?
So returning to the conversation about the full and part-time commitments, I do think, for me in particular, it'd be helpful in the future to consider like an FSE, like we do with FTE, where we are measuring actually the fractional part of the student. And so, for example, I just did the numbers on Bozeman Public Schools. So they have, and I'm not trying to pick on them, they just had easy, low numbers that I could do in my head. and first time calculator. So, they have 134 student count, 5 are full-time. 41 are half-time, 46 quarter-time, 42 three-quarter time. When you do the math on actually the FSE, the full-time student equivalency, that's 68.5 students. Certainly within, the parameters of receiving funding and so on, but I do think, for a real kind of, most accurate look at how many full students they have, calculated in that fashion would be very helpful for me. I can do the math, but I think, if we, in future reports, if it was permissible to include a column like that, I would desire that.
Any other board members have a question? Chair Tharp.
I don't have a question for Christie, but maybe it's for McCall and for the rest of us, thinking about our next round of charter schools, especially with the new restriction that we're gonna have regarding how much funding is available, and that has to play into with the number of charters that we grant. We granted these charter schools in the past and there was an assumption that they were going to meet the expectations, but yet there's, for lack of a better term, there's money that's been left on the table because they didn't meet their enrollment expectations. Are there any implications for us in our selection process next month if we grant certain charters and others don't get, because they didn't meet the threshold of our financial restrictions? And then one of them that was granted didn't rise to the occasion and make that money available to them. Is that something I shouldn't have even brought up? Or is that,
Chair Tharp,
Something to
I
think
forbid you
about.
to speak again. I don't know, we actually have an answer for you. What?
No, I mean, Mr. Chair, Chair Slinger, I would make an assumption when you're going through the approval and denial process next month that all of these charters are going to meet their numbers and that is how you will score them and you will use your criteria. That is sort of the assumption to make. You are going to be using that criteria and grading them on very slim margins. And so I would say that you should be making that assumption. I don't think any of them want to go without the funding.
no, absolutely.
And so I don't think that making that assumption is the way to sort of,
Oh, absolutely. But, and I also think that, the three Billings districts, East Helena, and they certainly plan for this year to meet those levels as well. And maybe it's a non-issue. Maybe it's these schools that are, because we have restricted funding, because they have to have, a little bit sharper applications and they're gonna have to rise to the top of it, that it's not gonna be an issue. But I just wonder about looking at this report a year from now, which of the ones that we approve may be in that situation where, things just didn't pan out. And what does that mean for somebody who didn't get funded that might have make it work?
Well, and I think Chair Tharp, to your point, with the limited amount of funding that we have, that A and B portion is gonna factor in. It could end up being two that are approved because you use up the funding. And in the past, it hasn't, really been a factor in the decision making, but we will have to calculate that this time, so. Board Member Maxwell.
Share. There's been surveys sent out about the process of selecting from board members and how could the process be better, or what do you want to know more about? So, I'm sure this has already been done because you guys are much smarter than I am, but, so have we been able to survey the existing charter schools? Particularly with the question I like to ask my staff, what do you wish I would have asked? Just because, I look back in my college days, I'm like, oh, I wish they would have asked me this or taught me this, or I wish I would have. In the application process, had you asked this question, I could have filled this hole that we then had to come back and fill. What should the board members be asking new charter schools as they come in? I just feel like that will then kind of close the loop. They give us feedback, because we judge, because we don't know what we're missing unless they told us what we missed. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think I would hold off on that until item 23.
Yes.
When, Executive Director Flynn goes over the process with us thing, but I do think it's a great question. And in that, to that point though, I do want to compliment Secretary Flynn on. I know there's been collaboration and sessions held with applicants this year, being able to ask questions of current charters. Okay, and I think that's incredibly helpful. I thought it was great insight to be able to give them, pull back the sheet and actually see the, be sausage being made, and whether they could actually understand what they're actually walking into, right? So if you don't mind, if we will pause on that. Is that okay till the next section? Member Rasmussen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is making me cycle back to what I asked of the charter schools yesterday, and that is, how are you planning to keep your charter school alive and functioning with staff turnover? And I all along, I've been concerned that in the first year or two, we accepted applications that maybe wouldn't have risen to the occasion in the current round of applications that are coming up. I don't know that, but it's worried me. And I'm wondering if there is ever a time that we say, look, you've been struggling for X number of years, you've never made cutoff or whatever. We have so many great applications. You're done, or you're on probation, or what are those kinds of considerations? I don't think they're approved in law, but with our new money restrictions, aren't we going to need to do something at some time to make sure that the best charters rise to the top and get funded?
So Board Member Rasmussen, I would ask Executive Director Flynn to answer your question, but also to remind all of us, what we're on right now is simply an enrollment update.
Okay.
So, and we're veering from that. So we could answer your question, please,
Yeah.
and then we will move on.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to answer that briefly. There is a process that in 5 years' time, after the charter is approved, there's a renewal process by which the board has to go through each of the applications and decide if they should be renewed or revoked. And so that is something that this board is going to have to think really critically about, whether you are going to be renewing each of these applications. That's probably something that actually you're going to have to start thinking about in probably another year.
Okay, thanks.
We'll sign that to the charter committee. And by that time, we'll have a different chair of the charter. If seeing no other questions from board members, I will thank you very much for your report. Appreciate it. And we'll move on to item number 22, page 312 in your packet, an update on public charter schools. How appropriate. Executive Director Flynn, would you update?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I jump into new applications and some conversations around the application and evaluation criteria process, I did just want to kind of give you an update on the performance framework revisions that have been made prior to the submission process that we'll be going into this year. I do want to make clear that none of these changes or revisions were major changes. We're not moving the goalposts. None of that was done. Well, we took that very seriously, that, we wanted to make sure that we weren't making major changes. Really, these were just additional opportunities for our schools and clarification. So first, just wanted to let you know that we removed graduation rate. Now you might be wondering, why would you do that? That's such a critical a measurement. Well, we do measure that in accreditation. So all of our charter schools will be measured on graduation rate. It's something they'll all be, will go through. It's just on the performance framework, it's really difficult to measure graduation rate when all of our charter schools, it just might not be something that is a good measurement that captures data for each of them, because they're all so different and they all have different goals. And so it just wasn't quite the right measurement for an apples to apples comparison. And so given that things are weighted so heavily for the performance framework, it didn't quite make sense. And it wasn't a required measurement by the statute, so we removed that. The school mission specific student achievement goals, those are actually due October 31st. That's in the contract. For some reason on here it said 30th. We changed that. It's non-debatable. We removed the numbers from all the rubrics. it was incredibly confusing because the numbers were different than the numbers that were in accreditation. So when the charters were looking at those numbers, they were like, wait, I got a 2 here. That is actually not a good number when you look at accreditation. So incredibly confusing. So we removed those, and working with OPI, we're just going to make it what the words are, a meet standard, does not meet standard. So that will be much more clear. Student achievement goals, attendance, supports for transitions. We actually expanded the categories for those. So we added exceeds and approaches performance targets. We thought that it made sense to allow for those sort of 4 areas rather than the 2. We want to make sure that schools can actually show that they're exceeding the standards. And because it's just a greater opportunity for them. And then we added one more open-ended question. Of course, this isn't something they're graded on, but I think it gave us a lot of insight into what's going on in our charters. So we added a question about reflecting on the charter and goals for moving forward. Any questions on the performance framework? They'll be submitting the performance framework in line with accreditation. So it's the last Friday in February, I believe. So we'll be getting those sort of same process as last year, compiling the report together, like we did last time. All right, next is the new application and interviews. Board members, you know, on December 1st, we are going to be doing the interviews for all of the new applications for our charter schools. We received 7 new applications for charter schools. I'm going to share my screen so folks online can see where to find all of these things. Maybe.
A little light reading over Thanksgiving for everyone.
Great. All right, on the Board of Public Ed website. If you would like to watch the interviews, you can find all the information here. December 1st is the meeting. 8:45 a.m. is when we will begin. You can stream it on our YouTube. So you'll find that here. The agenda and agenda packet will be posted here. And you can access that there. Here on our Public Charter Schools tab, you can find all of the applications, all 7 of them here. And if you click on them, all of them are accessible right there. If you are interested in where to find the criteria by which the Board of Public Ed will be grading each of these applications, go here to application resources. Scroll here, and you can find the evaluation criteria. This is actually really important because the board is not only required to use this, but this is truly solely the criteria by which the board has to use to grade each of these applications. This is directly in line with the application that is in statute, that is based off of the statute, and goes directly based off of each and every single one of the questions. It goes off of the requirements to be innovative, high performing, their commitment in the understanding of personalized and proficiency-based learning. And then it goes through each of the requirements of academic programming, board governance, business operations, community support and need, board roles and responsibilities, and then the overall recommendation on whether the Board of Public Education should approve or deny the application. So those are where you can find all of that information. Wanted just to be really transparent about those applications, when those interviews will be. Once the board is done with those interviews, the board is going to be scoring each of those applications. And then they'll be submitting those to us in January, to our office. In January, at the Board of Public Ed meeting on day 1, the board will be having a work session, really having a conversation about the scores and the charters. This year will be a little bit different. You've heard us talk about the ranking. And it's a little bit different because last session there was a statute there was a law, a new bill that requires that the Board of Public Ed can only approve charters up to $1 million a year. And we know that basic entitlements for high schools are anywhere in the $360,000 range. And our charters that were submitted this year, our applications, there are all high schools, and some of them are a combination of high school, middle school. And so that means that we're going to have maybe two high schools, combination of high school, middle schools. So it's gonna be really, really slim margins, like I said. So board members are really gonna have to sharpen their pencils. The rankings are actually going to be really meaningful this year. Prior board members were able to sort of have conversations about, wanting to bring charters up maybe from the bottom and discuss them. I don't necessarily think that's going to be part of the discussion anymore. So I wanted just to kind of put that on the table and make sure that we were having that conversation here, that everyone was on the same page. Make sure that the public knew where to find all the information on our website and knew when we were doing the interviews. Those are all open to the public and easily accessible. So wanted to open it up to board members. I know Dr. Slinger maybe wanted to say a few words as well. So wanted to see what questions board members had first.
So I just want to reiterate the fact that it's going to be a completely different conversation in January about first, the rankings is going to be incredibly important. Those rankings, as Director Flynn said, each board member will be submitting to her office their individual rankings and grading, and then that'll be compiled, and then we will look at those numbers as an aggregate. And then there's a whole other new factor. We have a limited amount of funding, so we will have to have that factor in. So there will be less of the, well, could we go back and look at item number 7, because I really like what you're doing. If they didn't reach a certain threshold, we're not doing that. We are going to move forward looking, because we truly have a finite amount of money to appropriate. So, and there has to be decisions. This isn't children's soccer. Not everybody gets a ribbon. So, and these are tough decisions, and I realize that they affect school districts, they affect students. And, but we have this responsibility. So, does any board members have any questions for Director Flynn? I don't blame you. I wouldn't want to ask her anything.
It's gonna be tough.
It's gonna be, it's totally different.
In the past, it was up or down, and we had a lot of grace given. Yeah, we're not really sure, but it seems to kind of meet the law, and so we felt compelled, but hey, we're gonna pick 2 is what it's gonna come down to. The funding isn't there to pick 3 high schools. It's gonna be 2 with the basic entitlement plus A and B. We've got to pick 2 out of the 7. That's gonna be brutal. There's gonna be 5 school districts that worked extremely hard that are gonna be disappointed, but this is our responsibility.
Thank you for that uplifting message.
It looks like Sunday, but it's not Sunday.
That's right, I know. Is there any other questions or no? Seeing none, Chair Clark, how would you like to proceed?
Just keep rolling with licensure.
Okay, I don't know, Mr. Craig's is
He
here.
is, yep. I'm gonna-
He is, okay,
now.
great, we'll go right in.
He's online.
Board members, this should be in your licensure folder.
I see Mr. Craig's, good to see you, sir. So board members, we're on item number 23 of licensure committee. A notice of surrender in Board of Public Education case number 2025-05. Mr. Craig's, could you enlighten us?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, absolutely. My name is Brenton Craigs. I'm representing the Office of Public Instruction and reporting this surrender. This surrender is reporting the surrender of Mr. Michael Jarrett. Mr. Jarrett was a teacher at the Great Falls Public School District. On August 14th, 2024, the Great Falls Public School District was made aware of allegations of Mr. Jarrett allegedly engaging in misconduct by having inappropriate sexual relations with an underage female in Lewis and Clark County while he was employed in Great Falls. The Great Falls Public School District and Great Falls Police Department initiated investigations into these allegations the very same day. The next day, on August 15th, the school district interviewed the mother of the alleged victim and placed Mr. Jarrett on paid administrative leave. On August 21st, 2024, Great Falls PD assisted investigators from the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff's Office in arresting Mr. Jarrett for 2 counts of sexual intercourse without consent. The assaults allegedly began in June 2015 when the alleged victim was 10 years of age and continued through 2020. In September of 2024, the Lewis and Clark County Sheriff's Office requested the Great Falls Public School District, which was working with our office on their investigation into these allegations, to halt their investigation due to the ongoing criminal investigation. Great Falls performed a parallel investigation into 2 other allegations of misconduct by Mr. Jarrett. On August 5th of this year, 2025, Great Falls informed Mr. Jarrett that this investigation concluded that during the course of his regular teaching duties, he allegedly had sex with a married woman who he was having an affair with in the bathroom of his elementary classroom while his students were in recess, and allegedly sent explicit images of himself to a fellow Great Falls Public Schools district staffer. The investigation concluded Mr. Jarrett violated the Montana Educators Code of Ethics, and the school district placed Mr. Jarrett on unpaid administrative leave with a recommendation for further disciplinary action. On August 6th, Mr. Jarrett submitted his resignation in lieu of termination to the Great Falls Public School District. On August 12th, 2025, the superintendent of public instruction summarily suspended Mr. Jarrett's license and informed BPE of this suspension, along with the recommendation for licensure revocation. On August 28th, 2025, OPI received the signed and notarized affidavit of surrender of educator license for Mr. Jarrett. And just as an update, since this was filed with the Board of Public Education as well, since then, Mr. Jarrett has been convicted of rape and sexual assault in court. I stand for further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Any board member have any questions? Seeing none, thank you for the update. This is no surrender. We don't actually have to take any action because it's been surrendered. So, thank you, Mr. Craig. Appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Next, we'll move to item 23, information on annual professional development unit providers list. Hi, Marie, good to see you.
And I have 2 individuals on my promoting them right
Well, I
now.
was wondering, I thought there was gonna be a whole crowd.
They should be coming on.
All right, good morning. My name is Marie Judish. That's Judisch, and I'm the Senior Manager of Academic Outcomes and Instruction at the Office of Public Instruction. Today I'm presenting to you the annual PDUPS report, which is Professional Development Unit Provider System. So if you need new acronyms, I have several today. Honest me. Well, get used to it. It's coming around a lot. Honest me, I have Amy Conzen, the Professional Learning Manager, and Eva Cox, the Professional Development Specialist with the OPI as well. So I will be doing the first part today, and then Eva and Amy will be taking over on the updates that are coming to the PDUPS system, long overdue, that we've been working on for multiple years now. So there are many exciting things happening in this area. First, we were able to use the administrative assistant position that was in teaching and learning before. And looking at our priorities, we hired Eva Cox as a professional development specialist. Previously, the PDUP system, again, professional development unit provider system, you'll get used to it. Previously, it was managed by the content specialist. Those content specialists happen to be rather busy with all these different revisions we have going on, and so we didn't get the attention that it deserved. So Eva Cox came on about a year ago, and since then, we've really focused on updating the processes, which are coming out soon, but cleaning up what was already there, seeing what active users and inactive users were in the system. There were several inactive that hadn't logged in years in that provider unit system. She's done an incredible job contacting every single PDU provider in the state and really cleaning them up and making sure they understood the requirements. Part of this entire process and updating is 2 years ago, you all updated the rules when it came to professional development in Montana, bless you. And so we want to not only see what we have and clean up what was there, but also move forward and make sure we're better aligned with ARM in those matters. I'm gonna jump to the key data points because Eva has a much longer presentation today, so I believe it's on 327 of your packet. Because of her cleanup efforts, we've seen a lot of improvements in the data. So the current system, she has to manually pull everything out. And we have to like line by line on a spreadsheet, really fun, making sure it's all in process. So the total PDUs, which is a professional development unit, other places might call it a CEU, it used to be renewal units, there we go. So that was one of the updates in the 2023 ARM update. So the total PDUs is 920,565 PDUs issued across 6,927 professional learning opportunities. That's a lot of learning our teachers are doing, so it's very exciting to see. The top providers are the school districts when they provide PD within their own district, whether they are doing that as the leaders or if they're bringing in consultants, whatever that may be. On to professional ed organizations like SAM and again, educational consultants and government agencies like yourselves and OPI. We had a total of 122,175 certificates issued this last year. And you'll notice part of that number compared to the previous year was 57,035. Part of that is within the PDUPS unit system. When you go to put an event in, you then have to come back as a PDU provider and say, I had this many people attend, and that's how we know how many certs were actually issued. And because of Eva's cleanup, we were able to say, hey, remember you had all those events, you now need to go back in there and clean that up. So that's why that big increase is there, is because we actually have the capacity to ensure that follow-up. So like Dr. Tharp, I know you're going in there and updating your certs and you can see the numbers there. So as you go through every different provider in the list, you'll see where they may have had 20 events, but 0 certs issued. That doesn't mean they didn't hand them out, but they didn't come back into the system and register those certifications, or certificates, if that makes sense. All right, I'm going to jump to again, as you move through this document, so page 327 shares the different opportunities per provider type. So largely our school districts, again, our professional ed organizations and so on. I want to call out the teacher learning hub, says it's 155. I want to note that way more than 155 people have taken those courses or that, but there are 155 instances, which means there's 155 courses that are on the hub. So you'll see what those certificates look like moving forward. Then you'll continue to see how many certs versus PDUs awards, the percentages as you go through, and then how many online offerings as well, because we know we have our rural eastern side of Montana and our little Trigo up in the northwest. We want to make sure we have those remote opportunities and where those are coming from. On page 329, you'll see the different categories of the professional development unit provider system has. So the types of events. So social emotional has been our top event, at least since I've been at the agency. This is the third year I presented it, and that's continuing on. We did make a special call out for the Para Pathways, where it has 613 total events from our special education. 132 of those are specifically from our Para Pathways. So it's really great to see how many opportunities are there. If you continue on, again, we have mental health and behavior as our top number selected and what is being offered for PDUs across the state. I know I'm going rather quick, but I'm going to help you navigate how to read this so you can understand those pieces, and then I'm going to let you peruse and Eva take over. So I'm going to jump to page 333 where you'll see government agencies. On the left-hand side, it has your provider
Board
name.
members, actually, that's 335.
Oh, sorry, I am.
We're off by 2 pages.
Okay, thank you, 335. You'll have government agencies there, so you'll see Montana Board of Public Education, about row 5, 6. There's 9 events. The number of PDUs available was 42, so that's 42 hours worth of PD. The number of certificates issued, because you guys are a great provider, went back in and put how many certs should be issued was 43, and then online offerings, which could go. Obviously you're online, but these wouldn't count for PDUs online. So with that, I stand for any questions about the specific report, or we can pass it on.
I have a question.
Yes.
Membership.
So this reporting certificate seems really clunky, clearly. So in the ideal world, how would you fix that so that?
Chair Slinger, Board Member Schmidt, Eva's really going to go through all of the work that we're putting into fixing that system to not only have a better high quality professional learning, for the state of Montana, but also to make the reporting easier, more automatic, and make sure it connects with Teach Montana seamlessly in those pieces. She's gonna go into those details of what all of that's going to look like.
Thank you.
Other questions at this time? I would just have a comment, I'll be really careful about those county superintendents, I know when they're kind of shady, so.
He's putting it all to be used though.
Like I said, very shady. So I stand on that statement. We can move on, please.
All right, Eva, you are up.
Okay, I'm just gonna get my screen shared here. Let's see. All right, can you see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Good morning, Chair Slinger and members of the board. My name is Eva Cox, that's C-O-X for the record. I'm the Professional Development Specialist, as Ms. Judas mentioned, with the Office of Public Instruction, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present today. I'm going to go super quickly and provide an overview of Montana's Professional Development Unit Provider System, or PDUPS, as well as the updates and enhancements we're making to that system. And like Ms. Judas said, our goal with these updates is to ensure professional learning for educators across Montana is high quality, evidence-based, and fully aligned with those ARM requirements and state standards. So I'm going to quickly walk you through the current system and the challenges we've identified, the solutions we're working toward implementing with our updated system, as well as the timeline for the internal and external rollout of the updated system. So we welcome and value your input as we work to develop this system. Let's see. There we go. To begin, I'd like to review the key terms in the current system because understanding these terms is essential as we move through both the current system and the decisions behind the upcoming enhancements. So as Ms. Judas mentioned, the PDUP system, that's where we house the approved providers and user information. We manage the official OPI PDU certificates, those events, professional development hours, and all of the information submitted by approved providers is housed there. And in that system, we have two key roles. The first one is the provider, and that is defined as any entity or individual offering professional development for Montana educators that results in PDUs for license renewal. So for example, a provider could be Billings Public Schools, or it could be an individual like Eva Cox. And every provider must have at least one authorized user, and that user is the person who adds events and issues certificates on behalf of the provider. So in the example of Billings Public Schools, a user might be their superintendent, school principal, or district secretary. So now that we've established the key terms and how the current system functions around those terms, we're going to look at the challenges we identified. These issues reveal really where the current PDUP system falls short of that fully aligning with compliance, data accuracy, and high quality professional learning. So following those 2023 ARM updates, specifically to the ARM items listed on this slide, the CIPL team identified these three main issues within the current system. The first one being that inconsistent reporting of data that you've seen. Some provider data is complete or outdated, and some events reported are misaligned with ARM requirements. The second one is limited registration requirements. Our existing processes allow providers to register without meeting full compliance or quality standards, and I'm going to go more into this on the next slide. And then the third problem we identified was that lack of evaluative data on PD events. So we have no systematic way to assess or validate the quality or impact of professional learning, specifically at that event level. So these problems highlight why the PDUPS updates are necessary to ensure that compliance and accuracy and high quality professional learning for Montana educators, which I will mention a few times throughout this presentation. This is the current provider vetting system, so I wanted to highlight the current application that providers fill out to become an approved provider of professional development units. You can see that application on the right of this slide. Providers submit that request using the standard form, and then I review the information, and as you can see, it is not a very robust application, and then I'll approve or deny the request. If I have questions and maybe need more input, I meet with a few other members of my CIPL team to discuss and come to consensus. Denials only occur if information is incorrect, a provider account already exists for that provider name, or a very obvious ARM violation is discovered. And then once approved, providers receive an email with their account information, a user manual, and a tutorial video. But beyond this, there's no additional evaluation or quality checks conducted. So with the current provider vetting status in mind, we're going to look at some data, and I know that Ms. Judas just shared some of this data with you, but I wanted to highlight and draw your attention to several key items that both show the scope of the put-up system and some of the challenges that we're addressing. So during fiscal year 25, the system recorded 6,772 events, which is over 3,000 more than last fiscal year. We supported 883 users across 584 provider accounts. So that just demonstrates the scale of professional learning that's managed through the current system. I also want to mention that since I was new to this position in September of 2024, towards the end of fiscal year 25, I conducted an outreach to every single user on the system, both in an effort to make that connection and to say thank you for all of the hard work that they do, but also to complete a review of every provider in the system. And my review identified some areas of concern within the system. Again, as Ms. Judas mentioned, 79 providers were inactive and were subsequently retired, and 17% of accounts had reporting issues, including some major errors. And then it's also important to note, as referenced in the previous slide, that 0% of those providers and their events were adequately vetted prior to approval. So these figures just really underscore why we need those updates, again, to ensure that accuracy, compliance, and the quality of professional learning across our state. So now that we've gone through all of those problems and issues that we're having, we're going to focus on some solutions. So to address these challenges, we're really taking that multi-pronged approach. We have established a robust provider approval and review process, including requiring information specific to events, and created clear procedures for revoking approved status. We've identified parameters for reviewing event alignment using professional learning standards, ARM, and then the ISAP where appropriate. We're working to create an integrated system to collect data, communicate with existing agency systems like TeachMT, and house those evaluation forms tied to certificates. And we will soon, very soon, in the very near future, field test and pilot the approval process, first with our internal providers, and then we'll move to our external providers. And then for the future, we hope to periodically offer professional development for providers based on data from the feedback we're collecting. Moving a little slow here. There we go. So another portion of the multi-pronged solutions is updating those key terms I referenced in the put-up system. So the updated system eliminates the term provider and instead distinguishes between instructors and hosts, because that enables feedback to be collected for each role separately. And this strengthens that quality assurance and oversight of individual professional learning events. So an instructor is now defined as the individual delivering professional development. So for example, Eva Cox, and a host is now defined as an organization or institution that organizes professional learning opportunities. So back to that example of Billings Public Schools, they would no longer be categorized as a provider, but as a host. And then the users continue to act as authorized representatives managing event and participation data on behalf of the host, since the host is now defined as an organization. So by clarifying these roles, we can see how the system is evolving, and we'll take a look at a side-by-side comparison of the current and updated put-up system features. So the updated system includes many improvements across multiple functions, so many that I had to use 2 slides here. I'll highlight a few updates here and I'll expand on some in later slides. I just wanted to make sure that I had all the updates in one easy to reference comparison table for you. So for now, we're going to look quickly at reporting because this came up. Today's reporting method is manual and clunky, I think was the word used. It's limited and very vulnerable to user error. So the updated system reporting is going to be fully automated. It will capture those PDUs, participation, compliance metrics, attendance will be uploaded, and links and events to instructors' SEID, which will give us data that's complete, accurate, and actionable. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. User management is another update I'd like to highlight. This change grew out of that fiscal year 25 outreach that I did, where I found many inactive provider accounts that had outdated contact information. So the new system is going to automate those annual reminders to guarantee that we have accurate, up-to-date contact information for both the hosts and the instructors. And then the last one on this slide that I'd like to note is an update directly linked to ARM 1055-714, and that's how certificates and feedback are handled. So in the new system, to receive a PDU certificate, participants must complete a standardized evaluation form after each event they attend, ensuring that every professional learning experience is meaningful and auditable. Two more on this slide. I want to start with alignment with standards. Our more robust process, as well as the new requirement of our event submission forms, ensure that we're able to check for full alignment with ARM and ISAP goals to ensure that professional learning does indeed qualify for PDUs. And lastly, one item that's been lacking is the event calendar. This one I'm super excited about. We're going to have a place for educators to find all of the wonderful professional development that's happening across the great state of Montana. Our new system will feed events to an internal calendar where OPI staff can quickly and easily see what's happening when and where. And hosts will be able to opt in to add their event to an external calendar, so educators will be able to filter and sort events by location, grade level, topic, category, cost, and mode of instruction, whether it be virtual, in person, or hybrid. This is a very exciting and much needed update.
Keep an eye out for those bread.
What did you say?
Yeah, I would appreciate you keeping an eye out for any put-ups that are in bread.
I'm going too fast. That's my problem. I'm on a time crunch and we have too many updates. The new system enhancements here on this slide, they again focus on that accuracy, compliance, and then streamlined workflows. So the updated application process, as I mentioned, requires hosts and instructors to document alignment to district goals, evidence-based practices, and adult learning principles, which meets all of those requirements that were updated in ARM in 2023. And then back to that evaluation piece, and I think this will answer the question that was asked earlier. To receive a PDU certificate, participants must complete a standardized evaluation form after each event they attend, and then completion of that feedback form unlocks their PDU certificate, which is then sent directly to the educator's TeachMT account and is captured in our system as a certificate being issued, so that need to return and manually update that number is going to be eliminated. So this process also ensures that certificates are secure and authentic, and no one will lose a certificate. Every record can be verified, and that really gives hosts, instructors, participants, us at PutUps, and our licensure team confidence in the validity and authenticity of those PDU certificates. And the feedback component also gives real-time feedback to instructors and hosts, which allows them to analyze the data and make changes to future sessions accordingly. Every event's attendance will be uploaded into the system to improve transparency and accuracy. In addition, each event an educator attends will be linked to their TeachMT account via that feedback survey, like I mentioned, and that allows us to maintain a complete verifiable list of events attended by each educator. That ensures accurate record keeping and also gives us meaningful insights into professional learning participation. And lastly, the enhanced event governance, which is something that we've really been working toward. The updated system will strengthen the requirements for every event entry. Currently, to enter an event, all the provider needs to supply is a title, a quick description, and how many hours it is and what category it falls in. So we've really made that application more robust to include things like connection to ISAP goals and sustained and ongoing learning and all of the requirements of that ARM item that I mentioned earlier. So we're really excited about that. And then for the customer service piece, I just added 3 audiences down there. The educators are going to receive those timely, accurate PDU certificates for license renewal. Hosts and instructors benefit from that simplified workflow and clear feedback from us. And then administrators, again, gain that real-time data to guide planning and inform their professional learning decisions. Okay, so to piggyback on that customer service, I just placed a reminder here of that outreach that I conducted at the end of fiscal year 25, where I reached out to 883 users. I received a 95% response rate. So we were really able to connect with almost all of our providers and either give them clearer guidance on what the requirements were or just say thank you for doing a great job. And we really want to carry that momentum into the new system. So we've set some goals for ourselves. Highlighted here, dedicated support, including training, FAQs, and technical guidance, workflow improvements, reduced administrative bottlenecks, and those analytics to identify trends in professional learning and participation outcomes. The benefits for audience here include educators, again, being able to track those PDUs efficiently, hosts and instructors receiving guidance throughout the whole process. And then I added OPI on here because we're really going to gain enhanced oversight and have data to inform and improve our own professional development offerings, which is super exciting. Okay, and quickly, this slide just shows how this project has not been done in a silo. It's truly been a group effort across multiple units within the agency. And these are the key players bringing the new put up system to life. We have our IT specialist who's really understood our vision and translated it into something tangible, ensuring we end up with a very user-friendly product for all of our customers. Our professional learning manager, Amy Conzen, she's on the call. She's been focusing on facilitating that work and approving the key decisions and processes. Professional learning specialist, that's me. I've been just working day to day, overseeing provider vetting, supporting training and communication, and managing those day-to-day operations. Our SIPL team has provided invaluable feedback. They've really been in the sandbox environment, giving us kind of a view of what it looks like from the host and instructor's viewpoint, and given us great feedback, and also with other templates and review work and workflow reviews. And then licensure has been very instrumental, offering input to ensure the system meets their needs and supports compliance. And then pretty soon, all OPI staff will be invited to apply for our application review committee and participate in the internal pilot. So together, these roles across the agency have really made our work possible. And I'm going to go super fast through the timeline. So July 2023, that ARM item was updated, which prompted the review of put-ups. September 24, we started establishing vetting protocols. Our roles were clarified. My position was created and I was hired. And then we received superintendent approval to move forward. November of 24, we developed our core messaging and FAQs and established a communication timeline. Looking at early to late 2025, in February, we drafted the provider application and appeal process and mapped our workflows. September, our evaluation tool or feedback form was finalized and project timelines were updated. And we really have started in those sandbox environments we've received from our IT specialist. In December, we're going to form the internal task force, which we've renamed the application review committee, allow internal providers to test the system, and we'll gather feedback and refine the system and communications. And then looking ahead to mid-2026, May, we're going to start emailing our current professional learning providers and letting them know that change is coming and what they can expect. We'll share a public announcement on the OPI website. In June, providers will have access to a sandbox environment to explore and prepare their applications, and we'll have technical support available. And then in July, we'll officially open the reapplication process and have communication emphasizing a September deadline. And during that time, we'll have informational webinars about the system and share materials that they'll need to be able to reapply. And then looking to late summer 26, we hope to fully launch the new system September 1st. Leading up to that, we'll have targeted outreach to focus on providers who haven't yet completed their applications, using regional meetings, conferences, and emails to highlight the deadline. And during that entire time, we'll have training sessions and virtual support hours to help providers through the process. And then we do have a few long-term wish list goals. Looking ahead, our long-term goals include implementing automated secure systems for registration and PDU delivery, conference planning tool, and then that statewide calendar that I mentioned earlier with great excitement. And we hope to expand our categories like graduate profile and ISAP, develop a post-launch plan for ongoing technical support and system updates to keep our system running smoothly. So this concludes my super fast look at the updated put-up system, its development, timelines, next steps, and future goals. And I just want to say we are so very proud of the teamwork across the units that's made this possible, and super excited about how the new system is going to streamline processes and support professional learning statewide. So thank you for your time and attention. We look forward to continuing our collaboration to support professional learning across Montana. And I will stand for any questions you may have regarding that super brief professional development unit provider system update slideshow.
Just so you know, I'll put you and Maria on notice that, we had only set aside 15 minutes, you guys went over. So future presentations, we will cut that time.
Okay.
No, thank you very much. That was great information on the put-ups, which is also fun to say.
Yes.
Board members have questions. Oh, there's many. Oh, fantastic. First, we'll start with, board member Quinlan.
Thank you. The sandbox is an interesting concept too. Thank you for a really thorough review of your plan. Clearly, you put a lot of thought into this. The one thing I didn't hear you talk about was recruiting some users from the field to test the system before it gets rolled out? I wondered if you had that in your plan.
Yeah, we do have the idea to reach out to some of our more like what word do I want to use? The users who are using the system correctly now. Yeah, that we have a good relationship with. We have talked about that.
There is a benefit to you, to recruiting users who are not using the system correctly. They can break it more easily than.
True. True, that's good input.
Board Member Neeskens.
I'm viewing this with the lens of being a provider and also the enhanced workload that perhaps it will put on providers. And so I do have some questions and perhaps you can clear up my concerns. That on on slide 357 for us, this is the one I'm referring to, which has the updated system highlights, which kind of are the summary of everything. It specifically mentions reduced administrative workload, and administrative burden for educators. Totally agree that it's going to help the teachers because it will already be in the Teach Montana system. For single district administrators, or districts where there's a single administrator, who is often the person entering the data into the PDUP system. For me, this sounds like more work, honestly. What I'm hearing is that they will have to enter the SEIDs of every single one of their participants unless that is pre-populating into the system, because you know which SEIDs are at which districts based upon the information you collect in Teams and through MPA Campus and other systems. And also having to upload the evaluations of the professional learning, or issuing that to staff so that they can then take those evaluations. Can you talk a little bit about how you see this reducing the workload for the providers who are administrators? Because I'm not hearing it based upon what you just presented.
Right, so what you mentioned is just update or uploading the attendance form. So providers are supposed to be taking attendance for each event that they issue PDUs for. So we'll have a template for them, a CSV file that they can just upload into our system. If they choose to use paper and pencil, they will have to manually type that out, but they should be capturing that information anyway. So they'll be able to upload that into our system, and then that evaluation piece is all automated. So once they confirm attendance, so let's say they enter my name and my email address and my SEID, I will be getting that evaluation form in the email, and they will have the host or administrator will have nothing to do beyond entering the attendance information. Did I capture all that, Amy or Marie? Do you have anything extra to say toward that?
I do understand the updates. I think they are useful to more accurately tracking what is happening across the state. However, I stand by my opinion that I think this will actually create more work for the people that are entering this data. I still believe that based upon what I've heard, and so I'd ask you just to consider that, especially in districts where you can't hand that off to somebody else. I could certainly have my clerk or my assistant clerk do some of the additional steps that you're discussing, but I think there's a lot of districts across the state where it is just one administrator and they don't have someone to hand it off to, and I believe we are asking them to do more. I understand why we're asking them to do more, but I don't think, I do not agree that this is reducing administrative burden for every educator. I think it does for some educators, but not the people that have to enter this additional information, which is probably administrators.
Thank you. Board Member Rasmussen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wholeheartedly concur. I can think of PD situations that I hosted, using your new term, where there would be multiple schools with 60 to 100 teachers attending, and I don't know their SEIDs, and neither do they. Okay, and so I see this as nothing but a lot of work, hours worth of work, which I don't think decreases anything and really gives you more information than it does me. And so I for small schools, I am completely opposed to this. I'd also like to ask you, what you talked about getting rid of hosts, people. What consists of the criteria that you would, and why should it be you? If a school wants to offer a PD unit, professional development unit, I'm not sure it's up to you to decide whether or not they're good enough. Okay, if the school decides that, that's local control. So what consists of delisting a host or instructor?
Those retired accounts that I mentioned, Board Rasmussen, were inactive. So people
Okay.
who had not accessed the system for 18 months to 2 years.
Okay, that's acceptable. I like the fact that you're automating the uploading of my certificates, because that's a terrible thing. But what happens when I get over 60 units? Now, when I get over 60 units, I can't enter anymore. So what happens in that situation when a teacher gets over 60 units?
Are you referring to 60 units on one certificate or 60 units over a 5-year period?
60 units over a 5-year period.
Yeah, they will all upload so that there will be a full record of the events that you've attended, as
All right,
long as you fill out that feedback form. Yeah.
That's good. And I'm really super concerned about the workload that you're putting on superintendents. I will fight that tooth and nail, because I promised, after I went along with the new requirements for reporting, that I would not support anything else and I know this is not up to me, but anything else that put more work on a superintendent, especially in a single, a district where there's only a single administrator. So I would really like you to reconsider how the impact of what you're thinking about doing would be on those particular people. Thank you.
Chair Slinger, Board Member Rasmussen, I just want to make sure you guys know we are still in that development process. We want this to work for everybody. The ultimate goal is to have better PD across the state so that we have better student outcomes. We're really thinking about the big picture, and really it's not about renewing a certificate. It's really about having better teachers in our classroom. They feel better, more confident, prepared, and we will fix anything that we need to make it more feasible for administrators. I understand that completely, and we will, I think I have some testers here that want to be in the sandbox, is what I'm seeing. So thank you for that.
Thank you, appreciate it. Chair vote.
As a response to Renee's question, there's no limit to entering in your renewal units in the Teach MT system. I've got more that I can keep track of. That's why I put them in there. But
I'd rather get that.
regarding, I'm gonna beat up on two sides. As county, so when my various schools in the county come to me and they things like when they're bringing in Mentoring Montana or somebody like that coming in, or they have other professional development, I serve as the host for them and then provide the units. They have their own, but then I vet I make sure that the instructor is appropriate, and I enter in the information there. But then I also do it personally, through my own training. And so the system is going to be designed so that the instructor, the host, and the user can all be the same person, I hope. You're not expecting 3 different people, because in that scenario, I would be the same person for all 3. But one thing I discovered as logging in is that it was not a very robust system. I was able to, there was no vetting at all. I just plugged in my name and stuff like that, and it was like, okay, go forth, do good work, and provide instruction. As far as, what Board Member Rasmussen was saying as well, not every professional development that's provided in the local school district rises to the level of being a renewal unit for licensure, because the local school district might choose to do something in-house or do training.
Absolutely.
Doing some PLC time. You don't get renewal units for that, but the district gets to decide. And so even when I have my first 2 days of the year PIR time, I look at that, okay, what hours qualify to provide renewal units? Okay, the training on the free and reduced lunch, the training for mandatory reporters. There are certain things that rise to that level, the QPR training, all of those things, they certainly meet that level, but not my full 12 hours over those 2 days qualify. And so I think there's still that local control to decide for local school districts, because not everything you do is gonna make lives for the. I do really like this here on the wish list about badging, because there are some things that I teach that do meet that criteria for a micro credential. Youth mental health first aid training, those are some that would meet the badging or whatever it is. So I do like that idea. But I also share Dr. Nieskin's concerns. Okay, so it's gonna be more work on me after the fact. I'm not just gonna go in and enter, okay, I gave out 8 certificates. I'm gonna have to plug in the names of those people I gave it to. And so, would hope that there's some sort of a way to streamline that, but I'm happy to help pilot and attempt to break the system as soon as you like.
Board Member Schmidt.
As I listen to your concerns about the effort that it's gonna take to document all this kind of stuff, the QR codes come to mind for me, you know, a QR code for attendance that each participant scans on their phone, and if there needs to be a review, then the instructor can review, but that's a pretty simple, they can put in their own number and read.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, then you don't have, because who wants to make Renee work that?
I think that's a great suggestion. We'll have one more and then we have to move on. Board Member Nieskin.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to pre-populating SEIDs, which is my suggestion, but to take this a little bit of a different direction, of course, there are mandated like suicide prevention training and so on. Will this system track that? Or do you intend to take, I don't see that mentioned in here, or maybe I missed it. But obviously there are mandated trainings which districts are required to provide for their staff. Currently now we certify that we do it. We don't necessarily track it in a more robust way. I guess, like, how are we tracking those 2 hours that people are receiving every so many years? And can it be included as part of this?
Chair Slinger, board member Nieskin, that's a great idea. I don't know if we've thought of that level yet, but I think that's something to absolutely build in. You can see on the annual report how many of those trainings happen. But right now, we have not had a mechanism in which to do the mandatory training, so that's something we'll invest in.
And districts might be offering it, but not offering
Yeah.
renewing of this.
Right,
for it. And
so it would allow-
huge disconnect of
Yeah.
possibilities.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, Marie, Eva, everyone, we appreciate it very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate you welcoming the feedback and still working on the process. So thank you. Board
Thank you.
members, please don't ask me many questions so we can stay on time. Moving to item 25. We have an action on the superintendent's request to revise Title 10. I will not read the whole thing, but pertaining to the Class 9 special education technician's license. Dr. Burgle. Mr. Gates. Welcome.
And Mr. Chair, there was a little bit of change to some of the information in your packet, so you will find that new information in your folders.
Thank you.
Yep, and I believe Chris, I have extras. You have a few extra copies if you want them.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Dr. Myrtle. Welcome.
Chair Slinger. Members of the board, it's good to see you. For the record, Julie Murgel, spelled M-U-R-G-E-L, CPO for the Montana Office of Public Instruction. Joining me today is Patrick Cates.
Patrick Cates, CATES, Senior Manager for Safety and Student Supports.
Great, so the purpose of our presentation today is to request a revision to ARM Title 10, Chapter 57, Educator Licensure, as well as ARM Title 10, Chapter 55, Accreditation, to include a new certificate option for special education technicians, and outline the qualifications and supervision requirements, and to also request to remove a special education graduation substandard in ARM 1055-8054
based on the August 13th, 2025 order from the U.S. District Court. So during this time, Patrick's going to go through, kind of walk us through the rationale as to why we are requesting to have an optional special education certificate in chapter 57 with the basic requirements in 55. And then I'll kind of talk through the portions on chapter 55, make those connections and the proposed timeline. So I'm going to turn it over to Patrick to kind of walk you through that rationale and talk a little bit about what we are proposing.
Thank you, Chairman Sharp, Chairman Tharp, Chair Slinger. I know you mentioned a minute ago the pages were off. I wrote down page 369.
I think you're right.
Is that the same for you? Okay.
Yep.
Just making sure. All right. So looking at the special education technician, kind of where does this come from? Why are we trying to put this in here? As we all know, we have a critical shortage in educators across the state, and that gets magnified in special education. And as we've all talked about already, the rurality of Montana, even more so in our rural settings, trying to find qualified individuals to work with our students with disabilities. And so trying to look at how can we level up our paraprofessionals without eliminating paraprofessionals, provide more support to our special education teachers, and ultimate goal of these folks hopefully continuing on to become a special education teacher so that we continue to develop that pipeline of special education teachers for Montana. The special education technician would be able to provide a slightly higher level of care for the special education students, providing some relief to the teacher. And we'll talk about that down in the qualification section here in a little bit, but the difference between, again, what we're asking for here for special education technician and a paraprofessional, paraprofessionals currently don't have any licensing requirements, no course requirements, no training that's required. And this will provide a higher level of education, higher level of training for these folks to provide better care for our students with disabilities. And really, again, take some of that workload off of the special education teacher so they can continue to focus on those higher pieces of their job. With this, obviously, they would have to have a supervisor. We'll be looking at a special education technician supervising teacher. They would have to simply have a year of experience being in the field, working as a special education teacher. We, again, know how quickly these jobs turn over, and trying to find somebody that's been doing it for 5 to 10 years is difficult. So wanted to make it feasible for everybody, but still have somebody with some experience that can provide that supervision of these special education technicians. Services that they may provide, I won't go through all of those individually, but in what they can provide, cannot provide, we sat down with a group of special education directors and teachers from around the state, both from cooperatives and from larger districts, and sat down and asked what are those duties that we could take off the special education teacher's plate, smaller level duties that we could provide somebody with this higher level of training that could handle those, to free up that special education teacher to focus on the larger pieces, the case management, the evaluations, working with the regular education teachers on the services that those students need. And so these go through kind of what they can do, can't do, and that was really derived from that group. And also comparing, if you look in North Dakota, they have very similar law and language around the special education technician. And so this matches up pretty closely to also what North Dakota had for the can and can't use there as well. And then the qualifications, again, at least a high school diploma. We have 40 online modules through our vendor LRP, which is a special education legal vendor, basically. And these modules, there's 40 of them that they have to get through those. They have to have 1,000 hours of documented special education work or an approved alternative. Case for that would be one of my paras I had in my last building I worked in, had been a title teacher or a title para for 9 years, had just started in her first year in special education, working in a resource room, but clearly she would have been a great candidate for this. So those types of situations we will look at for alternatives as well. Trying to make sure we keep this available to the people that are really interested in it. And then the verified completion of 4 introductory courses in education, we've got those right now running through. These can be taken anywhere and can qualify for this. We do have a contractor we're working with Dawson Community College to provide these courses in a specialized format for paraprofessionals, so they're fully online, works around the working person's schedule. They don't have to be on campus for anything, but that's not an exclusive situation. These courses can again come from many of the universities to fulfill that need there. And then, of course, the verified completion of the intro to Indian Ed course that we have for all of our certifications there. And again, the age group, these would be working with in our school age students, and now including this could go up with our graduation age here as well. So anything that a special education teacher is working with, the special ed technicians would be able to work with them underneath that.
Right, so thank you. As Patrick has outlined, we're requesting to open up chapter 57 licensure to consider putting in these qualifications for a voluntary certificate. It's not required, but if somebody wanted to go and receive this higher level of professionalism and certification, they could do so and then would be able to provide more technical support to our special education teachers under the supervision of a special education supervising teacher. Because we would be requesting to put this optional certificate into chapter 57, we would also need to take a look at chapter 55 accreditation, which requires negotiated rulemaking. 57 does not, but 55 would. And the reason for opening up 55 would to be sure that there were definitions provided for what is a special education technician and what is a special education supervising teacher, as well as to outline the qualifications and supervision requirements. So you will find in chapter 55 for all the other types of roles that are in our schools already, it outlines what are the qualifications and requirements, if you will, for paraprofessionals, for our educators, for our principals, for our superintendents. And so this would be another place where we would have to say, if you're utilizing an individual in this role, this is what they are allowed to do, and this is what their assignment is, and that would be in 55. In the meantime, another reason to open up chapter 55 on a very limited request, we would only be seeking to open up this chapter for these very limited purposes and a very short timeline, is also to address, and I put there for you on your packet under the update for ARM 1055-805 special education. So currently in 1055, there is a component that says a student eligible to receive special education services as identified under IDA, who has successfully completed the goals identified on an IEP for high school completion shall be awarded a diploma. And the court case that occurred on August 13th, 2025 has said that is no longer permitted or legal, if you will. That we are required to continue to provide FAPE to students. And that does not negate our responsibilities to provide FAPE, and that to receive a regular education diploma, you have to meet the regular standards. To do so, to receive that. It does not mean that if a student chooses to finish their programming at 18, does not negate that. But what happens is we can no longer be checking a box that says the student is graduating via IEP goals on alternative metrics rather than on the regular standards that are required to receive a regular diploma. So that needs to be cleaned up. And so that would require a limited view of that chapter, negotiated rulemaking to remove that component. So we are requesting, we are here today, your based from the recommendation from the superintendent is requesting your approval to open up these two chapters for a very limited purpose to finish up the research and development, which has, Patrick has indicated, has already started with outside groups that have to become formalized to bring together stakeholders, negotiated rulemaking. We'd be looking at an adoption phase throughout January through May 2025, with the goal of adopting these new rules in May 2026. Sorry, that's wrong. Oh my goodness, look at that. Let me check those dates. And so adoption would be May of 2026, with an implementation of July 1 of 2026. So thank you for that correction. Board Member Quinlan. So we stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Board members, questions?
With fear and trepidation, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
thank you.
Could you, it almost sounded like you were saying that, an individual would have to go through the, HERA pathway, in its entirety, and then add on special ed, components of that. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Or-
Sorry, yes,
Yeah.
Chair Slinger, Board Member Quinlan, yes. There would be the 40 online modules that they would complete and then enter into what we're calling level 2, which would be then the college coursework for those 4 introductory courses. And I just want to add to that too, that those 4 introductory courses are parts of requirements of all educator prep programs. So they would transfer in to continue on with that goal of hoping to get them to full certification at some point.
Thank you.
I just want to express my full support for this. I think this is spectacular and long overdue. As a superintendent who has 2 homegrown special education teachers who went from paraprofessional to now fully licensed as special education teachers, this would have been an excellent middle step for them had it existed at what time they were pursuing this. I can see where this will create potentially a pipeline of additional special education teachers. I think once some of these people take their 4 courses, they realize that it's doable. They might then decide to pursue a full degree. I think the implications of that are very exciting. One of the things that was said briefly, and I just want a little clarification, on the Dawson website, I'm looking at it right now, it says for level 2, take and pass 4 courses at Dawson Community College. There was a statement made that they could take potentially these 4 courses anywhere. I think maybe we want to think through what that would mean. Does this mean they're taking it from an EPP in Montana? I went out on the web while we were sitting here. There's, Grand Canyon University. There's like a lot of random providers of who could potentially provide these 4 courses. Would there be more curated list of where these could occur or some real specifics on that? What are your thoughts?
So Chair Slinger, Board Member Eustace, I think that's an incredible, very important piece that could align with all the other components outlined in chapter 57. That says that these courses would have to be taken from an accredited institution.
Right.
Other board members? Seeing none, Sheriff Barr, ready to make a motion?
Please do.
I move to approve the superintendent's request to revise Title 10, Chapter 55, Special Education Standards, and Title 10, Chapter 57, Educator Licensure Standards.
You heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Public comment online? No. All right, the motion again is very limited opening of chapter 55 and 57. We are proceed to a vote. And is there any, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along, item number 26, the annual professional educator appropriation provider report. Crystal, good to see you. You have 1 minute. No, I'm kidding.
It's usually one way for me.
As long as-
No, I'll be brief.
I'm kidding.
Good, is it still morning? Yes, good morning, Chair Tharp, Chair Slinger, members of the board. My name is Crystal Andrews, spelled Andrews for the record.
I am the School and Educator Effectiveness Senior Manager at the Office of Public Instruction. I am here today to provide the annual Professional Educator Preparation Provider Report. I think I have the page right. It is 373 in your packet is where it starts. This report provides an overview of Montana's 10 educator preparation providers as outlined in ARM Chapter 58, 1004.1 and 104.2. The report covers the following topics. The accreditation review schedule for the 11, which now includes the one approved alternative program, American Board, educator preparation programs, the accreditation status of the 10 Montana educator preparation programs, including the corresponding regional and national accreditation agencies, the initial and expiration dates of all accredited programs, the endorsement areas offered at the 11 with the one alternative educator preparation program, information demonstrating progress and efforts in addressing areas of improvement and or stipulations from prior accreditation decisions, data on enrollment numbers of completers and completers by subject area from the 10 Montana accreditation programs, and information about the Montana Assessment for Content Knowledge Verification. So in section 1, you will see an updated review schedule with Carroll College, Stonechild College, and then the American Board having their reviews this spring and summer, and the University of Providence next fall, which means I am very busy this coming spring. Section 2 provides each EPP's current accreditation status, along with the endorsement areas that they offer. You will see a few additional endorsements for some of the EPPs that have shared information with you in this past year about new programs or pathways, which is very exciting. On page 404, section 3, it is a good visual and synopsis of the endorsement areas offered and what level at Montana's 10 EPPs, and I added in the American Boards as well for their certificate programs. Section 4 includes data that comes from the 2025 Title II report that is reported to the Department of Education in October. For many data elements, such as the number of individuals enrolled in teacher preparation programs, the data is from the academic year 2023-2024. So I do want to note that the data is not the current year's data. You can see that there has been a 9.51% decrease in completers from the 2022-23 to the 2023-24 academic years. I know that you have had the opportunity to meet with Montana's deans this week, and I was happy to hear Dr. Seifert explain the difference between completers and students enrolled yesterday in her presentation, which helps explain that data piece. The next section, section 5, includes information from the EPPs that have had areas of improvement and or stipulations that need to be addressed before their next accreditation review. I have structured the data by accreditation standards to facilitate the identification of common themes, shared improvement areas, and the progress achieved over the past year. I strongly encourage you to review this section if you have not already to see the innovative work being implemented at our EPPs. The final section is information on the Montana Assessment for Content Knowledge, also known as the MAP. I wanted to include this as I know there has been discussion surrounding students not passing the practice exams. However, a little birdie did tell me that you discussed this at lunch yesterday with the dean. So I will not take any more of your time with this, but I do want you to know that I work very closely with our EPPs, including the Praxis Working Committee, on test adoptions and the standard setting process that involves expert panels. If an EPP ever had any concern about a specific praxis exam, we absolutely can work with ETS on collecting longitudinal data and revisit the passing scores. So it's always an option. And with that, I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. So any questions from board members? You did such a wonderful job. So.
Or you just want to break.
No. Excellent, just excellent. That's the way you report people. No. So, with seeing no questions, let's just move on to item number 27, Crystal.
All right, Chair Sarek, Chair Slinger, members of the board, Crystal Andrews, and BREWS. School and Educator Effectiveness Senior Manager. So my next item is an update from Montana State University Northern on the progress of their 3 stipulations that they received in their 2024 Accreditation State Exit Report. I believe this is page 413 in your packet. As a reminder to the board, a stipulation is a standard or component that is not met. The site visiting team identified a deficiency related to one or more components for this standard. A stipulation must be addressed within 2 years to the retain accreditation. In your packet, you will see the areas in which Montana State University Northern received stipulations, including 1058-314 initial program impact, 1058-315 initial provider quality assurance and continuous improvement, 1058-608 advanced program satisfaction with preparation. At this time, I would like to invite Beth. I'm gonna do it right, Beth. Duodoye. I did it.
Okay.
I think I did it, right? Duodoye, the Dean of MSU Northern, to share the significant progress that they have achieved since our accreditation review concluded last year. I did practice that. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairs Tharp and Slinger and members of the board. Again, I am Beth Durodoye, and that is spelled D-U-R-O-D-O-Y-E for the record. And I am Dean of the College of Arts, Sciences, and Education at Montana State University Northern. The last time I was here was the summer of 2024, and that was a crucial moment for our EPP at the College of Arts, Sciences, and Education. Soon after that, in September of 2024, we were formally granted accreditation with stipulation status. I'm here today to tell you about what we have done since to evidence our compliance with our 3 stipulations. You all have received the institutional reports for the standards that we submitted to OPI in August of 2025. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of our college's demonstrated compliance in each of these areas. And has been highlighted. The first is 1058-314, initial program impact. And we were asked to supply year-over-year data. So completer and employer surveys and an alumni interview for 2023-2024 were completed, shared, and contextualized with initial program faculty and staff. In 2024-2025, completer and employer surveys and alumni interviews will be disseminated this month for a January 2026 completion date. In terms of an example of how we have worked with this area, with regards to our employer surveys, there was suggestion that more attention was needed for our students in the area of classroom management and professionalism. So since that time, we have infused those topics in our Ed Excellence forums or our Ed Excellence workshops. And those are workshops that students are required to attend, and we hold them over each semester 3 times over the course of a semester. So we have started working in that way. Next was 1058-315, initial provider quality assurance and continuous improvement. And this is speaking specifically around our online program in elementary education. Our EPP held a day-to-day event in April of 2025 for initial and advanced faculty and stakeholders to analyze assessment data and evaluate, revise, and implement program action plans for continuous improvement. A visual design of our EPP's quality assurance system was formally presented to introduce stakeholders to the elementary education program's online mode of delivery. Continuous improvement was further exemplified by the hiring of a full-time teacher education faculty member this fall. And that individual complemented the hiring of a part-time teachers in training faculty member in September of 2024. as we went online, there was concern expressed by a number of individuals about online itself. That online learning, being online is bad, particularly for teacher educators or teachers in training. And that the only way to learn was through face-to-face. So we had 3 faculty who earned Quality Matters certification for their online courses in the fall of 2024. And Quality Matters is an international organization that sets standards and evaluates online courses and programs. And we wanted to get the message out that yes, we know and we understand that online is different, but it is not deficient. And so we made sure that that messaging went out. Since the fall of 2024, our elementary ed programs enrollment is up 40%. And from 2024 to 2025, we evidenced a 100% retention rate. So we are working in and working toward the right direction. Next is 1058-608, Advanced Program Satisfaction with Preparation. And for this area, completer and employer surveys for 2023-2024 were completed, shared, and contextualized with advanced program faculty and staff. Again, mirroring what we had done with, in some respects, initial programs. Again, the 2024-2025 completer and employer surveys will be disseminated this month for January 2026 completion date. The EPP also again held that Data Day event in April of 2025 for both the advanced and the initial programs. That was a half a day, including lunch, where we had everyone come together for the first part of the day to lay our foundation, let persons know how we would be proceeding and what to expect. We then had our initial and advanced programs and constituents separate and work on their data, and then came back together at the end of the day to discuss. So with that information that we had gleaned, I think at that level, with our employer and completer surveys, the suggestions that we received let us know that we needed to look more at our course sequencing, our academic maps, and crosswalking our syllabi with updated standards for counselor education, so our KCREP standards. And to that end, we have hired a temporary full-time faculty / KCREP process facilitator who is working with us in terms of our curriculum and how we are going to be proceeding forward. So we know that our compliance with the stipulations directly contributes to the quality and effectiveness of our work with our students and beyond. And our EPP will submit a second institutional report to address stipulation progress in March of 2026 in preparation for an OPI in-person site visit in April 2026. So thank you so much for your attention in terms of how we are proceeding.
Thank you, board members. This is just an informational item, just so we're not being asked about anything. I will say this though, I appreciate the efforts, I really do, but to only have one alum survey completed is
Yes.
unacceptable. I mean, yeah, I would look to see some sort of substantial percentage of alumni over the last 3 to 5 years, right, of the program. So if you graduated X number of people, I would expect to see 25% of the survey. So I would just encourage you to keep that effort. I know it's hard to track them down and get them to complete something, but that, I mean, one's just,
Yeah,
it's just not.
Thank you so much for highlighting that, because that is something that we did note in terms of our low ends. And I think when that happens, we as the EPP have to turn inward and look at what it is that we are doing. And I think that when we are working to recruit, get folks, we know that we have answered that why, so people are aware of that. We have been very explicit in our communication in terms of, you know, this is what we're doing, and, you know, we're making it easy for you to then get in and be able to, you know, do the survey. So we think we have that down. I believe that one area we want to look at even more is the area of confidentiality and anonymity. We have a small program, and I think that that's something that may be making persons a little wary or hesitant. But yes, we were calling, emailing, just doing everything we could, and we worked with, again, the persons that we were able to, but we do take note of that. So
I
thank you.
appreciate that, yeah, because statistically, a significant number
Yes.
also allows for the protection of that information as far as them not feeling like they're individualized, and it's pretty easy to know who said what when there's only one person in the room. So, other board members, any comment? Sure, Doug.
How far back are you going with those alumni surveys?
For right now, we did 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25. So that's what we're working with right now.
I got one about 7 years ago that I can make sure he does.
Other board members, any questions? Great, thank you so much, appreciate that very much. And Chair Tharp, I'm gleefully turning it back over to you.
Thank you, Crystal, thank you, Dr. Bett.
Thank you.
All right.
Give you my note,
All right, board members, our plan here, we're gonna jump ahead and do item number 29. Then we will take a break, and then we'll come back time certain at 10:45 to do item number 28. And then we will jump backwards and hit item number 19, and that will wrap the meeting. So at this time, I'm gonna, Assessment Committee Chair Member Rasmussen for item number 29.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 29 is related to what we looked at on Wednesday, which was the chapter 63 information on literacy and numeracy. But this public hearing and timeline action item also includes information on 1054-901, not just chapter 63. So our section 63. So I will let McCall tell you a little bit more about exactly what this is. It is rather perfunctory.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Board Member Rasmussen. You actually highlighted most of everything, frankly. So it really is just a combination of the explanation that I gave to all of you in the review of the Chapter 63 Early Childhood Education Standards that we reviewed on Wednesday, in addition to the early numeracy education standards and those revisions, early numeracy evaluation methodologies that we reviewed in September, along with some of those revisions. It's the full rulemaking package that you will see in your packet. I did fail, I will say, to include the timeline, and I apologize. So I'll just give you a quick high level of what that timeline could look like at this point. We will submit that proposal notice to the Secretary of State next week. It will be published in the Montana Administrative Register on December 5th. We will hold a public hearing on January 6th. You will see that in the notice. The final public comment deadline is also on January 6th. The adoption notice and respond to comments, assuming we get some, will happen in our January meeting. If the board does not get comments, we will be able to take action at our January meeting. So just letting you know that could happen in January. If we do get comments, we will respond to them in January. And then at our March meeting is when you will all take action on that adoption notice. And then finally, the effective date of the rules could be in April. Again, if we don't get comments, it could be much earlier. And just so you know that there is a little bit of expediency to this, we do want these rules to be in place so school districts can really start working on these evaluation methodologies for early numeracy so that they can start putting these programs in place at their local school district level. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I'm looking for my Chris Stockton very nicely written motion. So I'm just going to make one up on the fly. Are we ready? Okay. I move to approve the Action that is proposed on the notice of public hearing and timeline pertaining to rulemaking in our Title 10, Chapter 54, Early Literacy, Targeted Interventions, and Title 10, Chapter 63, Early Childhood Education Standards, and authorize the filing of the notice with the Secretary of State for publication in the Montana Administrative Register. Mr. Chair.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to proceed forward with rulemaking on chapter 54 and forward with the MAR and all of the other steps that need to be done. Any board member discussion? Is there any public comment? Any public comment online? I will proceed to a vote. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
How you doing?
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we have, rather than take too long of a break here to give it much time, is there anything else that we need to bring up kind of for the good of the order at this time of call before we, again, when we're gonna take a break, we're gonna come out of break at 10:45 for do the Macy report, and then we'll wrap up with the superintendent's report, and then we need to head over to be with Regents. Anything to bring us up to speed on?
Sure, rather than do this at the end, Mr. Chair, I will let you know that our next meeting is January 15th and 16th. We'll be holding that in Helena. Hopefully we'll be at the Capitol, but as most of you know, the Capitol is very much so under construction. But if not, we will certainly let you know where we will be. But immediately after this meeting, we'll be heading to the University Center to meet with the Board of Regents to hold the Board of Education meeting. And then I think after that, Mr. Chair, everyone is sort of on their own. And whoever you're cheering for, go Cats or go Grizz.
When is our charter meeting?
And on December 1st,
Oh, that's right.
next Monday,
Right.
Monday after next Monday, following Thanksgiving, we'll be holding the charter interviews starting at 8:45 a.m. That will all be posted online where I showed you on our website.
When do you need the board members to make sure that they get you? Do we wait until after that, or what do you need from board members prior to the December 1st meeting?
Correct, Mr. Chair, that will all be sent to us afterwards. It's important that you guys have a chance to listen to the interviews before you or while you are filling out that criteria. I believe I did send you all an email with the date of when you are supposed to submit that to me, so I'm not going to tell you right now because I don't have it off the top of my head. But it is somewhere in an email, and I will be sure to reiterate that to you after the December 1st meeting.
If any board members have any questions on our next steps with those charter school interviews in a couple weeks. We're all good on that. We all know what's going to be happening after we're done here. So we'll stand in recess until 10:45 on the official chronometer on the back wall, and then we'll return and wrap up our final items. Call the meeting back to order. We are on item number 28, and we'll hand things off for our Macy liaison, board member Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Like I said, I'm the Macy liaison, and I am actually going to go right over to Miss Jordan Langford Forrester on the screen here. I love you, don't love your hat.
I have a Bobcat cup.
Better choice.
Hello, members of the board. Thank you so much for having me. So, just an FYI, I lost the bet. We have a running bet with my stepdad. So tomorrow for the game, I will be wearing all Bobcat stuff to the game because the Grizzlies lost last year. So that's just free information for you. So my name is Jordan Langford Forrester Sikbianitha, Bright Trail Woman. We had our Montana Advisory Council on Indian Education meeting on November 5th, and we just went over some community updates. We voted on a little bit of restructuring of our board. We talked about what's going on for Heritage Month. Our next Macy meeting will be January 7th of 2026, which is weird to say, but here we are. And then we had one ask today if the Board of Public Ed was interested. So regalia protections, the ability for our students to wear, our Native students to wear regalia to public ceremonies is not protected in all of the states across what we now know as the United States. And so when I went to the National Indian Education Association back in October, I had crafted a letter which the Office of Public Instruction and the Office of Public Instruction's Indian Education Unit signed on to. And it's just a letter of support. And I went and presented to people from all over the United States who are also interested in gaining regalia protections for either their own states or their districts. So our only ask today was if the Board of Public Ed would be interested in signing this letter of support too. The letter lives on the Macy page of the Office of Public Instruction, and it's downloadable for other states or other districts to download and also present it. And it's just providing that other level of support, like, hi, this is Montana, this is best practices. We strongly support this being approved in your state or district. So that is our only ask today.
Thank you, Jordan.
Sure.
I move to approve the Board of Public Education signing on to the Regalia Protections Letter as prepared by.
Second.
Board member discussion.
I'd like to speak.
Please.
Mr. Chair. I, for one, am extremely happy to sign on to this. I think it is upsetting that in 2025, we are still having discussion. We talk about inclusion and celebrating our differences, and it is disappointing to me that we are still having to have these conversations nationwide. People deserve the right to celebrate in their own way, in their own culture, publicly, especially in moments where students have worked so hard to earn the cap on their head. I fully am excited as a mother of Native children, as a superintendent, and as a member of this board to hopefully make this made aware on a national level that this is something that should be common sense.
Board member discussion.
Mr. Deere. Good morning, Jordan. Can you tell, I think you hit on this, but can you expand on who's the intended audience for this letter? And
right.
How are you going to use it?
So Montana passed this in 2017. And so the letter explains how it was passed in Montana. And then it just also provides that support, and it's the intended audience is either districts outside of the state of Montana and or state entities that are fighting for this Protections Act to be passed in their own state. So that would be the intended audience.
Thank you.
Dr. Flynn.
Thank you, Chair Dart. In a state that requires Indian education for all, it's incredulous to me to think that we would not support this. So I'm gleefully will vote yes for this. Gleeful. And you'll hear that in my votes. Yeah.
Jordan and I go way back, and I tell you, Jordan, when this first came up, I was angry and saddened that this is still an issue. This absolutely should not be an issue anymore, but I do feel better knowing that the intent of this is for our neighbors in the rest of the country. And I certainly pray that this is still not happening within our state. And if it is happening within our state, then I would encourage the superintendent, and with the support of the Board of Public Education, to call out those individual districts or administrators who are still breaking this law and not allowing the regalia to be allowed at public events. And so I will absolutely vote for this, with not the glee of my vice chair, but with happiness. So, any further board discussion? Dr. Neeson.
I would just like to express my full support as well, and my glee. I also have glee. I am the mother of a Fort Peck Sioux enrolled son who graduated from Wolf Point High School and also wore his beaded cap and eagle feather at graduation. Not full regalia, but certainly something to honor his heritage, and I 100% support this happening in every high school across the state. Please give me the list of administrators who are not doing this. I would be happy to have a conversation with them at any time.
And I recall at the Grizz game a couple of weeks ago, the presentation of the colors was one of the ROTC members was an enrolled travel member, and he did wear full regalia while presenting the American flag, which I thought was really cool to see. Any further board member discussion? Yes, Superintendent Headland.
Thank you. Cheers. I just want to say that we do get phone calls, we do provide guidance and are very clear on what needs to occur. And Jordan and I have had these discussions, and that's why we continue to be outspoken and champion these efforts. That is unfortunate that it still occurs, but it does. Not to an extent that it used to. However, so that's great. And I just want to share one story from when I was in Great Falls. We were all there together actually as the board. And one of the young men shared that he was gonna drop out. He wasn't going to finish school, wasn't going to graduate. And we were having a conversation with him, Jordan and I, and his friend had beaded his cap and shared his cap with him and was like, I already beaded your cap. And it was the driver to get him to continue and finish and graduate. And it was just an incredible story. And to have the two young men share it with me and show me the cap was incredible.
Any public comment? Any public comment online? All those in favor of the motion, please vote aye with glee.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Jordan, you have the full support of this board. Thank you for your work.
I appreciate that so much. So what had happened last spring is there was a student down in New Mexico that had her regalia seized from her as she was going to walk the stage for graduation. And it just really bothered me. My students and I talked about it for current events. And anyway, we don't care only about our Native students in the state of Montana. We care greatly for all Native students. And with Montana just really being that leader in Indigenous education and Indigenous education for all, I hope that that's how also these regalia protections spread is always viewing Montana as a leader. And then basically it gets to the point where if you're not, like, it's uncool to not have this in your state. So that's where I want to get. And I'm really grateful that we can show other states our support. And I want to also thank Superintendent Headland. So every spring There's always a reminder out of the Office of Public Instruction in the newsletter, reminding admin and superintendents that this is a law. This is not an option. This is a law. You don't get to decide this for your students. They just have the right to do so. So with that, thank you so much for your support. I'm going to leave you with one piece of just a little fun fact. So I've been filming videos that's been playing at our middle schools every single morning on their Monday announcements for Native American Heritage Month. And this week on Monday, I taught them how to say bobcat and grizzly bear in Blackfeet. And so when I show you this, just know this is not exactly how, this is how I explained it to them. This is not exactly how the Blackfeet would spell it, but when you're learning a new language, the pronunciation is the most important part, right? You don't have to know how to spell every word in the English language. As long as you can pronunciate it well and people understand what you're saying, you can still speak it. So, Negayo. This is not how it spells. This is just how it would sound. So, Negayo. Negayo. Bobcat. Negayo. Basikoi. 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 Grizzly bear. And that's what I have for you today.
Thank you, Georgie.
Yes, thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
Right. We'll jump back in our agenda to item number 19. Board members will be back on page 296 of your packet. Superintendent Headland, the rest of the day is yours.
Who? Oh.
I just have a few quick updates to make. I have stepped out a few times to be on calls as we've had a lot happening at the federal level, as you all know. And so I just wanted to give you some updates on what's happening there. I first of all want to say that these impacts will not change anything for our school districts of Montana. And these interagency agreements that are taking place are going to take approximately 4 months, we've been told, but we remain to welcome any federal reforms that increase state flexibility, reduce administrative burden, and allow us to focus our time and resources to the classrooms. So I stand on that. Our agency is prepared, capable, and eager to take on a stronger role in the federal programs and leadership. We already have incredible staff running federal programs and distributing the funds at this point in time. So we are ready for that. Regardless of which federal agency administers any of the specific programs, we are prepared to be the central hub for Montana schools, ensuring continuity, support, and clear communication. And our biggest goal is to ensure no matter what structure is determined or ends up coming out of these interagency agreements, that we provide technical assistance without any additional burden. We maintain accountability and transparency, and we keep funds flowing to our students, teachers, and classrooms of Montana. We are hoping that any of these shifts do not create more burdens or administrative duties. So we've been clear in our communications that any of these changes, we're hoping allow for more innovation, more flexibility, more local control, and less red tape, less burdens to our state agency. Our states are leading the way, and our goal is to continue leading the way. The CCSSO director said it very well in a quote and just put out a new release that I'm happy to pass along to all of you so you can have that communication that I'm receiving from my organization, just as us as school administrators receive from school administrators in Montana and others. And I just want to make sure, whenever I have been speaking with the department and leadership in DC, I'm just requesting more innovation, more flexibility, more local control. However, it is directed to whichever agency, just as long as it can flow to us as smooth and seamlessly as possible so we can get it directly to the classrooms. But at this time, it'll just be a matter of us continuing to have strong partnerships with all of the agencies that we already work with. We already work with the USDA, districts. We already work with, you know, DPHHS and all of these other organizations. So it's just continued communication with them and flow through funds so that we can get that to our states, our districts. And so that should only impact us at the state level, and we have an incredible team that I believe can take that on, and we're ready to do so. There is a lot of different discussion around that, and some of it's confusing, and so I would just pause there and see if I can provide any clarity as much as I can. We don't have a lot of details at this point. Does anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have a generic question, I guess, and that is, what does it mean for guidance to states, for these changes that are, where, these federal education programs, currently, federal education programs are being moved to other, federal agencies?
That is an area where we haven't gotten any details about how the reporting or the guidance or anything's gonna change. So as far as we know at this point, it's just the way that the fund is gonna flow through these different agencies. And we are all just working together to communicate that we would like less reporting requirements and more local control, a more state level control. Just truly let us lead from the state agencies if we're making this shift. But we do not have details. This morning, the 4 months timeline was a new detail that I got, but we don't have very much information in the weeds at this time.
Thank you.
I've continued to be cautiously optimistic on this whole process. I know that Susie's got a relationship with now former North Dakota State Superintendent Kirsten Baszler, a friend of mine I work with, and so it's all about relationships, and we're going to continue to leverage those relationships, and we're not even sure exactly what position she's going to have with the Department of Education, but she was finally approved by Congress. And to our understanding, she's going to be a fairly high-level position, and it'd be important for the state of Montana to have the relationship with a neighbor like that who understands rural and understands, you know, we just need to keep the money flowing with as little government oversight and paperwork as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I saw her on Tuesday, that this week, she had similar remarks. You know, we're going to be optimistic moving forward, and I do think that it's going to be a great help to have her there with her experience and understanding of our region and her work in the field. She's done a good job, so it'll be nice to have that relationship, and it was good to be able to visit with her, and she will be there on Mondays, so it'll be nice to have that connection, like you said. So I have some other updates if everyone's ready to move on. Okay, so we've already talked, you guys have heard a lot from us the last couple of days, and we've already talked about data modernization. We're really excited about districts getting ready to go live, our pilot districts. Very happy to have the MTSS modules, risk analysis, like the early warning system that we had for so many years. So we're looking forward to those. Going to provide great tools for our educators in Montana. I've talked to you about that before, so I won't go into too much detail. I think it'll be really exciting to hear from those districts that have those tools at their fingertips and are utilizing those once we get there. So we'll keep you posted. And I also wanted to thank Jason Maker with the Digital Academy. His team has put together incredible AI guidance in collaboration with a committee of folks and experts from OPI to help to support our schools across Montana on implementing AI best practices and how to do that safely, but also utilize it as a powerful tool. So we're thankful for that. We also recently partnered with the Barbara Sinatra Children's Center Foundation. They have nationally recognized education materials on mental health safety, personal safety, sex trafficking, many components that we now have even have requirements for through legislation. So wanted to let everyone know about that. We also just announced a partnership with Level All that's going to be very helpful. It's a free platform for all districts to utilize, and students can build personalized pathways to success in CTE on that. So we're excited to have that available. It also connects well with a lot of the platforms that OCHI is currently using. So we're excited about that. And I wanted to make sure everyone knew that the Montana Teacher of the Year was recently announced, Courtney Duma. She's a family consumer science teacher from Belgrade High School. And I think that's really fun because we have only been having a few graduates a year in that program. So I think it's going to be great to celebrate her and have her great work out there for everyone to see what an important field that is. When I saw my family consumer science teacher doing a lesson on interest rates, it was incredible, just for an example, so people understand the incredible work that they do and the broad array of lessons they teach. I think it's really relevant and important, and so we're excited to highlight her. And those are the main things. I know we've covered a lot, and I don't want to take too much more time. So if there's any questions following up from any of the other presentations, I stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Got about 20 minutes or so, so not any questions. Dr. Neeskens.
I am a little concerned about math science. Because I did ask McCall to inquire about approval from the board to receive his math science, and we cannot find an action item that was specific to that. There definitely was information items. I don't want to imply that that the board was clueless about math science. There was information items where we were given information specific to the fact that math science was coming. And I think even on an accreditation, or I mean, an assessment subcommittee meeting, I perhaps even saw some sort of like proposed timeline. So I don't want to imply that was informationless, but I don't think the larger board, I guess my concern is that the involvement of the larger board outside of the assessment committee and having that discussion just as a larger board about OPI's plans for math science and how that will look as far as development, timeframe, rollout, which as you explained to me yesterday, is like 2 years from now, and those kind of things. I think just putting that out there, be transparent with our public would be good, because I did get a few rumblings from administrators and science teachers when the email went out soliciting for people to become involved. I think a few of us received those kind of comments where it was like, when is this happening? And what involvement did we need to have in proving this? And so I would like to ask that is a future action item for our full board. If that's appropriate. We did approve MSAA, I recall that for signing. But math specifically, there doesn't seem to be any sort of action item that occurred.
I don't have any input necessarily. I mean, I'd be happy to work with folks. Yeah, it was just something that we were certainly going to discuss with them. Yeah.
Dr. Merkel, do you have some?
Board member Neeskens, great question. We were planning to first pilot and work through pilots and get feedback before we move forward to making the determination if this will or will not be the model. So we have not sought approval that's in the plan. So I'm hearing you loud and clear that it'd be important to communicate out that timeline of that we're piloting and when would be a consideration within that timeline.
Yeah, that would be excellent information, that this is a pilot, and then the question will happen. I think the way people are understanding it in the field is like full steam ahead. And that this is just coming and there's not been opportunities for maybe public comment or input.
Great, I appreciate that information. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a quick follow-up question? Julie, when, this talks about a pilot for grades 6 through 8. What's the grade level, how many grades will be included ultimately in the science assessment?
Chair Tharp, Member Quinlan, we are looking to pilot 6th, 7th, 8th, with 6th and 7th grade, being kind of, not the final scores that report up to the final summative, and almost like optional. You can choose to kind of do these, testlets if you want, that will have performance tests in them, and then looking at 8th grade, so that districts can kind of choose, match with their curriculum, because some teach all life sciences in 7th grade, some teach a life science component in 6th, 7th, 8th. And so because you only test once in 8th grade, and those standards cross that entire continuum of 6th through 8th grade, we're looking at 8th grade, and you can do one more testlet. The second window of 8th grade, what we're piloting, this model would be a performance task in that second window that would count towards the summative score, and then an actual summative assessment in that last window at 8th grade to cover the content in a more broad array. So more of utilizing it in the earlier grades as solely instructional. Just giving folks opportunity to get information on math content standards and being able to understand how performance tests help with some of the other engineering standards and the cross-cutting components. And so that's kind of what we're trying to pilot now, because we think it could be very difficult to, if students are in one school in 6th grade, transition to a different school in 7th grade, to take those scores and add them up for a summative, especially knowing the range of options that our districts utilize and how they lay out the scope and sequence for the science content.
And what happened to 5th grade?
So 5th grade, so for Member Quinlan, 5th grade is there and doing really well. We currently are just looking for this right now for the middle school, with maybe some options of thinking about 5th grade. We realize that with our 5th grade, you know, they're doing the math as well as the math and the ELA. And most common in our elementary schools, that's the same teacher in more of a homeroom kind of situation, self-contained classroom that are doing that. And so we don't know yet if we're going to move towards a 3-year model in elementary school for science, or if it would stay just as one-time summative. The decision was to move to middle school because there are situations where middle school teachers, science content teachers, are not doing math and ELA and have never really participated if they're not in the 8th grade teaching that science content. And so this would give them some instructional options and kind of, you know, set the bar for what we should be seeing in middle school science. So I would say that that's up for discussion and thinking around what that would mean to have the 3-year for science in 5th grade and what that would look like.
So just one clarification. So for the time being, there will still be a 5th grade science test administered to all 5th graders and all 8th graders as well. And this is a pilot for groups that volunteer, for schools that volunteer for the.
Sure, correct.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know who has volunteered for the pilots, but I would think it'd be really, given the model that you've described, which I think is intriguing, especially because it's more of a focus on what happens throughout middle school. One thing that comes to mind is schools with high mobility rates, a lot of kids moving back and forth between various districts. How that information follows them. Especially if the pieces that are contributing to kind of their performance on that 8th grade test might have been administered at a previous district. I'm sure you're thinking of those things, but that's what comes to mind for me is we have a lot of mobility in some of our school districts, and the data kind of following them through middle school, since there's the 6th, 7th, 8th grade piece to it. I do think in districts where kids largely spend the entire middle school years at one school, those challenges would be far less, but the impact of that on results and testing for high mobility districts, I think, hopefully that is part of your pilot.
So, board member Easton, yes, absolutely. I think it's an intricate component and it's part of a balance, right? It's voluntarily, no one's being required to pilot, but as we're recruiting and we're looking at schools that have a range of demographics, have a range of models, range of sizes, locations in the state, so that we can ensure that our pilot sample is a representation of the entire population. So that is a really important consideration.
And also to address the elephant in the room, the reason this is kind of a sore point is because this board was blindsided by the ditching of SBAC and moving to MASC, and it happened, and it's not at the fault of anybody in this room, but we are very sensitive to making sure that these processes are followed and make sure that the board is fully informed of this. Board members, this is on page 297 of your packet if you're interested in that timeline.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up and share a couple of points of information. And I will ask Dr. Herbold to help me clarify a few details. However, a couple of things that I found interesting about this when I first heard about the science component when I started serving at the OPI is that this would then allow all of these assessments to be on one platform, right? Because right now we have multiple platforms, so I thought that would be helpful for educators. Another component was that as soon as we found out about it, I talked to McCall and requested that we get some information in front of you. That was before I would even accept the GAN, the grant award. This is one of those examples of the OPI team really being innovative and leading the charge, which we do need to seek approval for before we're ready to move forward with. But the grant that they were awarded, highly competitive, very critical grant that very few states received for us to do this explorative work in this new model of assessment. So as soon as we got the information to accept the grant award is when we provided you with the first bits of information as I was receiving it, because we definitely want to bring everything to the Board of Public Ed moving forward. Can you explain a little bit about the grant proposal?
I can, superintendent. So we did receive a CGSA grant. It's a competitive grant from the Department of Education for innovation in assessment, and it's a 4-year grant. And we are just completing our first year. It started in September of 24. Yeah, so we just reached over a full year of September of 25. And so the first steps were to just conduct a theory of action, pull together our stakeholders, get a sense of what kind of model they would like to begin. And so we're moving along that time frame of what was put in that grant to say, okay, now we're gonna kind of roll out a pilot and begin developing that framework and developing items and testing items out in the field. And so that's kind of where we're at on that continuum, with the goal of rolling it out. At the earliest would be, I think it's in 27. So there's some time before it would even be considered. So there's a timeline intentionally within that grant of meeting those metrics or timeline points, if you will. And so we're just kind of moving through with that, and happy to share more information either in a subcommittee or come here and do a little bit more of a presentation to kind of share with you guys, like, where are we at on the status of that timeline and what have we heard from the theory of action, and kind of who is going to willingly participate in the pilot, what we've heard already, who that might be, and kind of show you guys a little bit more information. Happy to do that, but yes, it's a 4-year grant, so that's where we're at.
I love it. I love the idea. I love the innovation and all that. It just, when it hit the field, it sounded like it was a done deal, and we're doing it, and it's already happening. And so I think that's where some of us started receiving some pushback from people saying, wait, we don't remember this happening, what's going on? So yeah, I love that. But tiny marketing glitch on it. So, yes.
I have one question for you, Julie. So with the mobility issue that Dr. Neeskens talked about, can you use the same model that addresses mobility for the math and the ELA math test? Can you use that for the science
Board Member Schmidt, it is very similar, yes. So basically, if you didn't get things, in sixth or seventh grade, it wouldn't count for or against you. Towards your final summative score for science in middle school. So it'd really be at the end of that eighth grade year. I think what Board Member Neeskens is saying, if you've had opportunity to kind of practice the model and kind of see what it's like to do a performance task in this way, or how the questions might be outlined, you may be in a, we don't know because we have to pilot to understand and test, but it might set somebody up to be more successful at the end of their eighth grade when they're taking that summative assessment, because they're familiar with the model and how it's designed versus somebody who is not. And so I think that's probably a really important piece to be thinking about and sharing with our schools, so that when they do get to that eighth grade year, even in that first window, if students have not had an opportunity to practice using those, do use some of those testlets that are not required but are optional, so that every student could have some opportunity. But we would see those score reports, right? And if they go from school A to school B, that information would continue to be there for those instructional purposes. for those
They
students.
follow the individual student.
Follow the student.
I understand that practice makes perfect, but as long as the information is following the student, they move.
Absolutely.
Thank you for those clarifying comments.
Thank you.
Bring it ahead, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Nothing?
No. I think we've covered a lot of ground once.
We certainly have. Any board members have anything else for the good of the order? Well, I want to specifically thank Superintendent Headland for her staff being present here, especially being outside of Helena here. The number of staff members that we've had present over these last 3 days is very gratifying to see. And as Dr. Lee was explaining earlier, we've had conversations both, formally while we've been under meeting called to order and outside. It's all about relationships, and the relationships of being able to go up and talk to Cedar, or talk up and have these relationships with the staff. Just improves everything between the entities and making sure everybody's working together. So I want to thank you for, and I realize how much of a challenge that is to have that many staff members out of the office and following us around. So I appreciate your effort in that.
Well, likewise, I would like to thank Director Flynn and her incredible team, Chris and Julie, for working so closely with our staff and just having open lines of communication and being able to prepare cohesively for the meetings and Nicole always running a tight ship.
As Dr. Lee said, it's about the kids. That's what we're here for. We need to keep our focus on that. Also want to acknowledge, he hasn't said much here, but thank Rich Gatterman for making the trek across from North Dakota with us as well. Being present is our new legal counsel, and I appreciate him being around. And just to kind of get the feel for what the Board of Public Ed is, who we are, I hope that till Monday morning, he's still part of us. Not this much time with us, but appreciate your time spent coming out and learning more about what we do, Rich.
Thank you, Chairman. I will just say for the record that both you and McCall undersold the responsibility. I'm happy to be here.
Very much.
All right, once again, a reminder, our next meeting is going to be via Zoom, and it's a charter committee charter interviews on December 1st. And then we will be back in person again, someplace in Helena on January 15 and 16. Reminder, McCall, where do we go from here? We go to the UC for lunch.
Correct, Mr. Chair, we'll be at the UC for lunch, and then same spot for the Board of Education meeting. And then you are free to go after that.
All right. I say, thank the Board of Public Ed staff for their work as well. We have quite a stack of boxes and everything to take us on the road as well. With that, this meeting is adjourned.
Everybody.